2 years?
No, so she started years ago.
So three. And we talk on the phone daily, but it's one of those things where you're talking now, so think, I gotta go by. Like, we don't just, okay, bye. Like, we hardly ever, I don't think I've ever had an actual goodbye. Like, it stops every single time. I'm so excited about this. So, Adrian is a rural eastern North Carolina mother of 4, one with extra special needs. Past preschool teacher, nanny, children's ski instructor, early interventionist, college professor, early childhood researcher, wife, and full-time mom. In writing after a 20-year hiatus, she offers personal glimpses where satire meets truth, faith meets irony, despair meets joy, and this educated debutante escapes the laundry and finds true meaning in graceful transparency. It's like the most perfect bio ever. I copied it for something I did. I just changed my things in there. Yes. So Adrian and I have been writing, I would say side by side, doing very similar things. We feel like we live in the upside down world of social media, and we just really lean on each other. Our third amigo, Carrie, is not here.
No, Carrie, we miss you.
Carrie was our speaker last year. Didn't even see her. She was phenomenal. Maybe next year we can get them both to come. We'll see.
Yeah.
So thank you for coming. I'm so excited. She's not a hugger.
Sawyer's writing me notes.
Why are your shoes off?
Sawyer, don't judge me. I'm not used to wearing shoes this long. They're not offended. You all take your shoes off if you need to. Molly is going to be doing our photos, so we're going to be ready. I'm really thankful to be here this afternoon. What a great way to spend a Sunday with a group of similar women who are committed to making time for themselves. So give yourselves a hand for being here. I'm not somebody that talks to my family when I'm gone. I just operate on no news is good news, so you don't have to worry about it. And it was really nice to leave. I told my husband, he was like, what time's your flight on Friday? I was like, oh, it's really early. It was at 11:45 a.m. And I was like, so I'll need to leave town on Thursday. And because then you get to miss a whole day of getting people up for school, which is like HE double hockey sticks. So I was in TJ Maxx, and he's not really a stalker type, but he was like, what are you up to? I was like, oh, I'm just getting ready. He was like, at TJ Maxx? So anyway, just thrilled to be here. Had a Bloody Mary, a lot of women with extra special kids, perfect for me. So a little bit about myself. I grew up in Rocky Mount, that's me with afro, and Eastern North Carolina. I was raised alongside one older brother, Adam, and was a pretty regular family. I grew up on the Tar River. In the afternoon, I was on my go-kart, literally running from the police most afternoons. I was about 7, and spent the summers at Atlantic Beach. I went to Salem Academy for boarding school, and then I studied child development at Meredith College. I did a master's in early intervention at UNC Chapel Hill, and I have a PhD in educational research and policy analysis from NC State. When I was at Meredith, I met my husband, Thomas Wood. So we have been married for 20 years. We've lived in Edenton for 19 of those years, and it's really our home now. We have 3 boys and a girl. They're a little younger here, 17, 15, 13, and 9. My husband is a criminal defense attorney, vestry member, basketball coach. I started my blog 7 years ago, Tales of an Educated Debutante, and do quite a bit of speaking, not a ton, but a good bit. I coach my daughter's soccer team, I teach Sunday school, and have been PTA president for several years while being a stay-at-home mother and managing the lives of my 4 children, all of whom were breastfed. Now, why am I here? Are you wondering? Like, she's clearly got it all together.
No one thinks
got this perfect life. And I came here to hear all this mess? Shit. Well, you're in luck. There's more to me than that perfectly scripted story. So I'm going to give you the real version. The real version isn't neat and tidy. It's not the life I imagined for myself. Real is where we are right this second, and it's the life that we ended up with, the messy, joyful one. So this is my real life here. Yeah, that's my life. So that's actually my daughter Blair, way before I started vlogging, and all those baby dolls in that Coors Light, I just love it. The real story is that I was raised by Yankees in eastern North Carolina. I didn't have monogrammed sweaters or wear hair bows. I was a skinny kid with a bad haircut, and I just was not, Miss Southern. Now, when I was in the 8th grade, my parents decided boarding school was going to be a good fit for me. So they hauled me out to this school called Salem Academy, and I realized out here, y'all are like, why do people go to boarding school? This is horrible. Now I've sent 2 of my own children there. So they hauled me up to the school, and we pulled up to the front door, and I literally refused to get out of the car. So my parents went on the tour without me. But they wised up, and they had my older brother come and take me. Well, then of course I loved it because he took me, so I ended up there. So after 4 years of Salem, it was time for college. It was early August of 1993, and so I graduated. I was living in Atlantic Beach. I was babysitting, living my best life. And my dad, and this is a true story, it's probably August 5th, and school starts, August 18th? And he said, so you're going to go to Appalachian? And I said, yeah, I'm going to go to Appalachian. And he said, well, it's really far from the beach. I said, yeah, it's far, but I can go back and forth to the beach on the weekends. And he said, well, how are you going to get there? And I said, well, I'll drive. And he goes, oh, I couldn't let you have a car if you go to school in the mountains. Now, if you went to Meredith, you could have a car there. So I went to Meredith. So I met my husband when I was at Meredith College, and we were friends. I shouldn't probably tell the story, but I will because y'all had a drink. But if you ask Thomas, if you ask him, when did y'all meet? He always, I immediately am like, I hate this story. He's like, well, I thought she was much older than I was because I was a pledge for the fraternity and she would be at the fraternity house. And he said that I would smoke cigarettes and then flick them off the deck, and he was in charge of picking them up. I promise you that is not true. But we didn't start dating till after college, and we, had this wedding. It was wonderful. Well, really, about the week before the wedding, we were like, neither one of us has a job. This is going to be a problem. And I can't believe my parents didn't say anything. But anyway, he was in law school, so it was decided that I would quit school. And at that point, I had finished my coursework for my PhD, but I was, still writing my dissertation. So I quit, became a nanny and a part-time researcher, and he carried on with law school, graduated, we moved to Edenton. We thought this would be great, we'll start a family. Well, he didn't pass the bar exam. So I took a full-time job, pushed my degree off. Again, he studied, he'd no pass it again. And he was like, I remember, he went and got, you get these sad, obviously we've all gotten some news that was hard, but he got this letter, and he just went and laid in the bed. It's like what you do, right? And he said, I don't think I can take it again. And I was like, oh, you can take it, you can do it. I wanted to have a baby, you gotta get through this exam. So he did, he passed it, we were thrilled. It was time, I was pregnant, and we went to the doctor's office and went for that first ultrasound, and we saw empty sacs. And my dreams of motherhood seemed really far away in that moment. Now, do you see the difference in those stories? The real version is the one you're going to remember, right? It's messy and not the plan I have for myself. But it's a good story, a joyful story, a story worth telling and listening to. And the reason I'm here today is because we all have a story to tell. And I sound like I'm copying Kate, but I promise you I wrote this before she wrote hers. I'd like to encourage you to take the plunge. It doesn't mean you have to shout your messages from the rooftops or do videos from the bathtub if there's anybody that does that. But it's worth it. So I'm going to give you a few examples of my real, kind of a private behind-the-scenes tour into the Wood family. And I want you to ask yourself, am I sharing my real stories with the world? Now, you've had a new baby and you're going to share a picture. Is this a picture that you all put on Facebook? I seriously doubt it. And why was I so tan? I promise you, this is back when I was organized, I had laid out clothes for them to wear to the hospital, and it was not a Dairy Queen t-shirt. I was also at the, don't let me talk so long. I was at that day, I'd gone to the doctor that morning, and he was like, you're in labor, you can go to the hospital. I was like, damn it, how do I never know when I'm in labor? I don't want him telling me. And I was like, well, I'm going to the pool, the country, we call it the country club, because it's just like a club that's free to join, it's in the country. And I plan to take my boys to the pool, so I'm just gonna go out there. And so of course I, text some friends or whatever you did back then, I don't know what. And I said, y'all, I'm in labor and we're gonna go to the pool. Do y'all wanna go? They were like, yes, we're going. So finally my husband came and got me and was like, I need to go to the hospital. Anyway. Now this is another picture of me that went viral. In Spanx. So we were in Washington, D.C., just my husband and I. My in-laws had convinced us to join this group called Don't Google It. The Society for the Cincinnati. I think after this picture came out, they were really regretting that encouragement. We were standing in an elevator and my husband had forgotten something and said, I'm gonna go back probably to get like his dip or whatever it was. And I was standing there and I was so uncomfortable. Dip, what you put in your lip. And from North Carolina, I love tobacco. And I was like, I'm so uncomfortable. I've got these tight underpants on. And just how many people are out in the world? And there was this mirror. And I just thought, I could take a picture. And so I did. I did not know it would be like the banner of Yahoo News. Could never be something good. Now, this is my dad, my daughter, Blair, who's 13. So my parents, reality with my parents is, my mother's probably watching my subscriber video right now, is very real. I don't know how y'all do with your parents, but we go see my parents. They're down in Florida. And we show up for Christmas. We got a service dog, 4 kids, 2 adults. It is bad. And when you get home from vacation and people are like, how was your trip? And you say, oh, it was wonderful. It's really nice. Well, everybody knows you're lying. You've all been in like 3 generations of people in a small house for a week. So I had taken to writing down things that my dad says to us while we're there. So this is last year's spring break. These are honest to goodness questions. I could not make this up. Is your last name Wood or Woods? It's a concern, I know. Y'all are like a tornado. This is my favorite one. I didn't grow up like this. And that's usually like my children on the couch eating powdered donuts, and he walks by and it's like, they didn't even speak to me. I'm like, they're watching TV. I can hear fine. Fox News, honest to goodness, is a DEFCON 4. You're like 3 blocks away. I'm like, oh my God, I cannot put this television is out. What did you all do to the electricity? Like, I just turned the air conditioning on, that's all. Who's using all the towels? When we arrived in Florida last year for Christmas, they surprised us with a Disney cruise. We only spent one night at their house. I thought it was so sneaky. It was really brilliant. A few years ago, this is not a good picture for it, but all 4 of my kids played soccer, and none of them wanted to. And Amos was the most unlikely candidate, so I had decided, like, if he touches the ball, it's going to be a successful soccer season, right? Like, we need nothing else. He literally he did touch the ball, he spent all season in the nets. He loves soccer nets, like to wrap up in them, you know, like an octopus. And that's really what life has been like with him, right? It just as real as can be. And there's nothing more humbling than having a child with disabilities, or with Amos at least, playing on a team. Like, and we don't have these kind of like special teams like y'all do here, where it's like we're the only one out there, right? That's different from everybody else. You might as well be butt naked. That's how it feels when you're on a field, like trying to chase someone out of a net. That's why I can get in the bathtub and do a video like that. That is far less scary to me than being on that field and all of these people on the bleachers just looking at you like, oh, it's terrible. Anyway. Why did I start sharing? Exactly 7 years ago, I was living the dream. I was PTA president, was teaching Sunday school, had a successful husband, finally. 4 children. Damn it, I mean, I had the American dream. And then I had Amos. And my 4th child, my 3rd son, the apple of my eye. Like Kate, I knew really early that he was different. He was about 10 days old, and I knew. He hadn't smiled at me, and you know, you go to the doctor and they tell you you have Munchausen by proxy, you know, you have all these problems. And I remember my pediatrician who like hides from me now because I told the story, but he was like, my granddaughter doesn't talk either. I was like, now I'm like, how's she doing? Is she at Harvard yet? No. When he was 10 months old, I made a referral for early intervention myself because no one believed me. So I was like, well, I know how this process works. Damn it, I'm gonna make the referral. So I did. And the early intervention in North Carolina, the coordinator came with the speech therapist and the OT. They bring kind of everybody to your house. And I had the living room all cleaned up, and I had a blanket in the corner of our living room, and Amos was lying down on the blanket, and I had some toys. And she walked in, and we introduced ourselves, and she said, oh, this is Amos, you know, and she said, what can he do? Is that all he can do? And it was as real of a moment as I've ever felt in my life. It was like the whole world crashed down, you know, over me. And there was just too much hurt to swallow. Like in that moment, I was like, I'm not gonna make it. Now, the rest of the story is Adam, that big brother of mine, had died of cancer when he was 19 and I was 15. And as my worry for Amos grew, I did what I'd always done. I just tried to shove that hurt down and just swallow it. I was out of room. There was no more room for any more heartache. After 25 years, the jig was up, and that paperclip of grief had gotten me. And I woke up one night and I was just wandering around the house, and I was really thinking, what am I gonna do? And this voice in my mind, I remember it was my right shoulder, and it was like somebody said to me, you used to write. And I thought I did. I used to write. When I was little, I had always written. I just was a writer, and when my brother was sick, I got to journal, and when he died, I closed it up and put it away, and I didn't write anymore. With the gift of Amos, I said goodbye to perfection, at least the picture of it, and I started writing again. My very first post, I'm going to read it to you because I think a lot of y'all are writers, was called Elephant in the Room. It was December 2015. Here's what I wrote. Satire meets truth, faith meets irony, despair meets joy, and this overeducated debutante escapes the laundry and finds the true meaning of life. Guilt and shame will not overpower my need for personal transparency and the freedom that comes with it. My white flag is brutal honesty, immeasurable faith, and hope, a sea of tears from heartache and silly joy. I think this blog has been stirring in my heart for the past 20 years, before blog was even a thing. However, it was not until my latest trial that I felt ready to air my laundry. That laundry is my truth, heartache and sorrow, deep tragedy, hopefulness and love. Truth that is so bright and clean, and by being in the open will hopefully add something of value to the people that encounter it. The elephant in the room is Amos, my latest trial and perhaps my loveliest. The loaded questions, the vague statements, the worried glances, the long silences. He may not catch up. It is a concern that his receptive language is delayed. At some point, without continued progress, he may not be eligible for any more speech visits. We just don't know. You'll have to wait. What can he do? Is this all he does? Does he sit up? Does he roll over? Progress of a 4-month-old. The walls are closing in on me. I was drowning in the what ifs, and I made a decision. Rather than wallow in the what if, I started sharing the what is. I made a choice to be vulnerable, and really, I was choosing to reach out my hand and accept help after a life of running for the hills. It's not always easy, but sharing lessens those thoughts and the fears that nudge us. So recently, or not too recently, I guess it's been a little while, I told a few of my secrets. I'm scared to have dreams because the ideal of failing is my greatest fear. Needed to lose weight, but I don't want to give thinking about how I look any more space in my tired mind. I love my youngest special needs son, but sometimes I find myself thinking that institutions were around for a reason, and then my face grows hot with shame. It's hard being a daughter, a wife, a mother, an aunt, a cousin, a sister-in-law, a friend, a volunteer. I wish I knew how to do it better. I worry about what people think about me. People that don't know my background and see me as a bit spoiled, too confident. I'm really not that confident. And long for their approval. I want to love myself, but there's so many reasons myself says you should be more. The more vulnerable we are, the better we can be. I write truthfully and from the heart. I share the good, the bad, the ugly of my life, which is just like everybody else's. It's not an easy path, but it's a joyful existence. I share glimpses of what it's like to be a grieving sister, a mom that feels like she's never quite good enough, a bad juggler of 4 kids, the real deal of being a mother to a little boy who at 3 years old finally said mama. 8 years have gone by, and that elephant of fear is pretty far away from me now. I don't think it will return. By sharing the ins and outs of my life, I really realized that by accident, the messy of life is where the beauty is. Hard as hell? Yes. Days that are too steep to climb? Absolutely. But terribly awesome, even confronting lost dreams and heartache, and a realization that perfection and success aren't what I thought they were. So if you've ever read my blog, you see that I disclose truth on many levels. It might be a murder trial. It might be my husband is Putin on a horse. It could be back when my older children were a little younger and didn't have access to social media. I really have some great material that I'm not allowed to publish anymore. So they were about, I think Amos was like 2, they were like 9, 7, and 5. And I decided that I'm going to talk to them about sex ed. Like, it's just time to talk about this. And I'm just going to talk to all of them about it at the same time. I'm going to get that out of the way. So we're driving, and I think I had gotten maybe a letter from school. So we're in the car, we're driving to the beach, and I said, sex education. This is all they were at the time.
Oh my God.
Do y'all know anything about that? And my oldest son said, parts. I said, okay, what parts? And then he said, why did you say it like that? What parts? And I was sitting there thinking, this is like what it feels like to be old, right? I said, well, at school coming up, Thomas, they're going to be talking to you about puberty and relationships. And my daughter said, do you have to go to the hospital when you get puberty? And my other son said, relationships? You mean when you get kicked to the curb? And I was like, I'm going to carry on. I said, no, your body changes. You get hair on your privates, under your arms, and girls bleed every month. And my daughter was like, what? And then my son said, bleed? Why? Do boys bleed? And I really almost said, yes, they do, but I didn't. I said, no. Girls have thousands of eggs, and when the girl goes through puberty, she gets her period, and when the egg doesn't get fertilized, your uterus shuts off and you bleed. I don't know if that's exactly how I heard it. So my son said, so you can have thousands of babies? And my daughter said, eggs, I'm not a chicken. And my other son said, can we have eggs for breakfast? I was like, well, that was good. We made it through right. So, quite simply, I've told my real story. I've always been an open book, but I had no real mission. It was just me, the same precocious little girl who had always pushed the limits and a lot of people's buttons, revealing her heart. Why though, you might be saying to yourself, why? What's in it for me? So when Amos was 3 years old, we had been accepted to the Undiagnosed Disease Network at Columbia. At this point, we didn't have a diagnosis. We thought there was something genetic, but we didn't know. He had some midline defects, so he had tongue surgery, so he didn't have speech, but we thought, oh, it's palate related, it's all these things. So he was 3 years old, we'd been up in New York, and we had gotten the autism diagnosis the day before. And I was floored. I had absolutely, that had never entered my hemisphere. And I was really struggling. I mean, well, y'all know, I was struggling. And our flight was delayed. It was pouring down rain, so we were settled down, like down in the cavern of the airport, you know, where you go down the escalator and they put you in that little space. And anyway, we were sitting down there, and almost immediately I noticed this little boy and his parents. And they were so happy. They were like, I was ignoring my children. They were eating strawberries. I mean, who takes strawberries to the freaking airport? They were like pushing cars around, and they were all pretending to be airplanes. I mean, it was just too much. And I was annoyed with the whole scene. Well, after a little while, the boy came over and he introduced himself as Egypt, and he said, you know, can your kids play war with me? And I said, well, you can ask them. I mean, I just wasn't getting involved. And they were thrilled. so they all got down on the floor and they became this like heated card game. He shared those freaking strawberries, and I said, I'm gonna go change Amos's diaper. And Egypt said, well, my brother's 2, and he wears big boy pants. And I said, Amos has autism. And it was the very first time I had said that word out loud. And he shrugged his shoulders, and they kept playing, and after about an hour, it was time to go. And I was just sitting there thinking, like, I didn't know. I knew that you grieved cancer, right? Like, I had that down, I had done that. But I didn't know you grieve things that didn't kill you. And I just sat there thinking about that. And after an hour, it was time to go, and they said, oh, Mom, take our picture, back when they liked me to take their pictures. And so I did. I took their picture, and they were reluctant to part ways, and Egypt didn't have a picture. And Thomas gave my business card. I mean, I had business cards, I was organized. And so Egypt got his iPad, and he pulls out this iPad and to show his new friends a picture of his family. And I'm still kind of annoyed at the whole thing. And it's his little brother and his mom and dad in Egypt. And I'm looking at this freaking iPad. It's Swiss Beats and Alicia Keys. My first thought, I should not admit this, was relief. Because those were not his parents, those people with the strawberries and the planes. And I said, who are y'all? And they're like, we're the nanny and the bodyguard. I was like, I knew y'all were getting paid that. I mean, so we get on the plane, and I write this letter to Alicia Keys. And I said, your son fell into our lives this afternoon, and no matter our background, I was reminded that all kids want to play a game, and all children speak what's on their mind. And I shared what her son had asked me about Amos, and how it was the first time I had said the word autism. So I had shared this hard truth, and I'd been rewarded so quickly, right, with this surprise encounter. Boy, it was a reward. And not just because Alicia tweeted my post, which is very helpful for your blog, I will say. That's good stuff, right? Born through honesty and sharing the realest of stories. These days, I share not only my story, but stories that matter to me. As you know, those fall on a variety of spectrum. Eastern North Carolina, special need public schools, documenting kindness, sometimes calling out bad behavior when necessary. My platform has been built on stories, real ones, not just mine, but ones of folks that maybe need a voice or a bit of inspiration, or hope, or camaraderie. The truth is, I grieved the life of the child I thought I was going to have. I imagined this fourth child who would be playing t-ball and keeping up with his siblings and just on my coattails all the time. And that's not who I got. It's never happened. But it's not bad. It's just different, right? It's different. And this is joy, I tell myself when I wake up and there's like cat puke on the couch or other people's puke in the house. I'm setting alarms to like meet the school bus. Having him in our family has just been the brightest light. And he's taught us to catch the beauty and joy in those teeny tiny moments. I mean, I remember my daughter said, he can sip his pajamas, or my son said, Mom, he's using a fork, or I was like, guess what, he used a cup today. All those tiny snippets that I never even noticed before. We're choosing joy. Life has never been more vivid or pigmented or ramshackle or lovely or joyous as it is in this moment. Joy born of vulnerability, sharing the real, and allowing those bright recollections to push away the darkness and seize upon the beauty of today. Amos has shown me that the joy is hiding in the being yourself, the authentic you. Not the new you wish you were going to be, or you thought you would be, or you'd be in 20 pounds less, but you right this minute. And all that careful charting is just wasting time. It's wasting time, because you're going to see that this journey is better than the one you have for yourself. I want you to think of a world where perfection is kicked to the curb. It doesn't matter if your kids are brilliant or have special needs, how much money you make, where they go to school, what size you wear, where you live. Lay down that semblance of order that you present to the world on a silver platter. Get the frickin' Tupperware out. I mean, just say, I'm gonna give you the real version, the truthful one, the messy one, the amazing one that's marriage and yelling and exhaustion and autism, maybe even fear. Because it's helped me realize that my life, though not the one I planned, is awfully good. Thank you.
We do have about 15 minutes for questions if anyone wants to ask one. She's an open book, so please be gentle. My son is here.
I really do, I almost have a sickness. I love questions so much.
Okay, so somebody ask one.
Okay, Rachel.
I just want to know if you can speak to community, like both of you, because what you're doing is life changing.
You want to sit on my lap? If I can do what?
Talk about the community, like you're watching these women connect on a cruise ship, in your town, in this room, and sharing the real. I mean, I'm not telling a damn story.
Answer your own question
It's
now.
just incredible. It's incredible.
Yeah, it's nice. You know, I don't There. I think for me, you know, when you think about somebody last night was like, how'd you name your blog that? You know, that's kind of a off-putting name to some, and that's why I say, well, my parents are Yankees. One time I had a debutante say to me, that's really a thing in North Carolina, you give debutantes a bad name. And I was like, yes! But when my heart is happy is when